A scorned maid's love defies class, turning rejection into royalty. The grand hall bristled with the golden glow of torches, their flames flickering against banners heavy with the royal insignia, casting long, quivering shadows upon the polished stone floor. The air hung thick with the scent of spiced wine and roasted meats, mingling with whispers and covert glances that swirled like smoke in the ornate chamber. Through the maze of silk gowns and embroidered doublets, Alara moved gracefully, a crimson tray cradled in her slender hands, her fiery hair tucked beneath a simple coif that betrayed her station. Her emerald eyes scanned the faces gathered the nobles seated high, their jewels catching torchlight like stars in a cold, remorseless galaxy. Each glance cast in her direction was a blade veiled in silk, thinly hidden contempt and amusement twining in cruel smiles. The clinking of goblets and murmurs fell around her like a tempest, but the storm she felt was torrenting inside, unseen but all-consuming. Alara bowed low, the hem of her worn, modest dress brushing the marble, careful not to spill a drop as she served the potent vintages. A sharp intake of breath from a lord nearby cut through the murmurs, followed by a stifled laugh. She felt a prickling warmth rise to her cheeks, as if the very walls themselves whispered scorn instead of welcome. With hesitant hands, she approached the duke's table, offering the goblet to a guest whose gaze locked on her too long's eyes, cold and calculating, no shred of kindness or welcome. "More careful, girl," he hissed, his voice slicing through the din like a sharpened sword. "A servant's place is not to fumble and disgrace." The sweetness of wine turned bitter on her tongue. Alara's fingers trembled, but the tray remained steady. Nearby, a courtier's snicker drew like a sharp arrow at her dignity. "She's nothing but a maid," the voice sneered, unworthy of even a glance from true nobility. She caught the hush that fell, the swift movement of eyes shifting away, the smell of disdain thickening the air around her like a suffocating mist. The food on the tables, once vibrant with promise and flavor, suddenly seemed dull and tasteless. The princess's gaze flickered, icy and disapproving, lingering on Alara's flushed face before turning away in silent dismissal. The crown atop the princess's head gleamed, cold and distant, the very symbol of power she longed to touch but knew she never would. The wine spilled slightly on an embroidered glove. A pause, a heartbeat, and then laughter bloomed like a deadly flower among the nobles. The sound was sharp, cruel. Alara's breath caught. Her heart hammered against the confines of her ribs like a caged bird desperate for flight. She forced a bow deeper, retreating with grace that belied the tempest of shame roiling within. Her footsteps echoed hollow in the distant corridors as she left the hall, her simple skirts whispering against cold stone, the harsh murmurs of the court chasing her like a relentless shadow. Alone for a breath, the murmur of the court faded to a distant storm. Her hand brushed against something tucked beneath her apron, a delicate, forlorn rose petal, pressed and faded. It was a secret token, a fragment of forbidden longing nestled among her duties. Outside, moonlight spilled silver upon the castle's ancient walls, the night air crisp with whispered promises and haunted memories. Alara paused, the weight of rejection settling like a shroud, yet within her, a spark fen, yet defiant, gleamed beneath the surface, hinting at a fire not yet quelled. The mirror in the corridor caught her reflection. Striking auburn hair wild and untamed, bright green eyes shadowed with both fear and a flicker of unyielding pride. The gown of a maid, humble and plain, did little to mask the regal bearing etched into her posture and heart. In the silence of that sprawling castle, amidst echoes of scorn and whispers of fate, she stood small yet unbroken, her story just beginning amid the cold war of power and hidden desires. The heavy oaken door of Alara's chamber closed with a muted thud, casting the rich, flickering candlelight into a retreat of shadows. Outside, the distant echoes of the court's laughter and whispers faded, leaving behind a palpable silence that pressed against the walls like a tangible weight. Alara stood motionless, her fiery hair cascading untamed over her simple, threadbare dress, the contrast stark against the warm glow of the room and the coldness that gnawed at her spirit. She lowered herself onto the rough wood of the narrow chair, knuckles white where her hands clenched tightly in her lap. The bruises to her pride from the banquet replayed relentlessly, each snide glance, each whispered mockery stripped the layers she had wrapped around herself, exposing raw, tender wounds beneath. Her emerald eyes, usually so fierce and luminous, were shadowed by the heavy fog of betrayal and rejection. The scent of lavender from the small bundle of dried herbs on the windowsill mingled with the earthy aroma of the stone walls, but brought little comfort. Instead, an oppressive chill clung to the air, wrapping around her like a shroud woven from scorn and doubt. The place where she sought solace had become a prison of self-reproach. The mirror hanging on the wall reflected not the maid the world saw, but a fractured image of a young woman torn between yearning for acceptance and the weight of shame that threatened to crush her. Her gaze fell to the polished surface of the mirror, the jagged reflection fragmented by cracks long since ignored. It was a constant reminder of the gulf between her true self and the image cast upon her by society's unyielding gaze. Alara's fingers brushed hesitantly over the cold glass, tracing the outline of her face, her touch a silent plea for recognition, for belonging. Tears welled unbidden, shimmering like dewdrops against her flushed cheeks. But within the depths of despair simmered a flicker, faint yet stubbornly insistent, a spark nourished by memories of whispered kindness and stolen glances from him, the prince whose shadow loomed over her thoughts like a fragile bloom of forbidden love. A soft sigh escaped her lips, mingling with the distant howl of the night wind outside the narrow window. The rose pressed delicately between the pages of a worn book on the bedside table caught the candlelight, its faded petals a silent testament to dreams deferred but not extinguished. The chamber, though confined and modest, held a space where courage could yet root itself in fertile soil. Alara's breath steadied, the storm of rejection transforming slowly into a tempest of resolve. She knew the path ahead would be fraught with Paraloff-whispered conspiracies, of scornful eyes, but the heart dares where reason trembles. A faint rustle at the chamber door startled her, a delicate knock, almost hesitant. She straightened, the regal bearing in her posture now more than a facade, a silent vow etched in the fire of her spirit. The note slipped through the crack, landing softly upon the floor at her feet. She bent to retrieve it, her fingers unfolding the parchment with trembling care. The ink on the page shimmered faintly, the words a promise veiled in mystery and hope. To the one who dares to dream beyond the walls imposed, your fate awaits in the shadows of the court. Alara's breath caught, the ambiguous message kindling a raw ember of possibility. In the depths of her solitude, beneath the weight of judgment and disdain, a new journey beckoned, fraught with danger, yet alight with the possibility of reclaiming her worth and forging her destiny. The candle flickered, casting a dance of light and shadow across her determined face. In that fragile illumination, Alara rose not just a servant lost in the court's cruel tide, but a woman poised to challenge the very fate that sought to confine her. Outside, the wind stirred the night with whispered secrets. And within the confines of her chamber, a heart silently vowed to defy, to endure, and to love beyond the boundaries set by birth and blood. The sharp clang of the closing banquet hall door faded into the distance as Alara stood alone in the dim corridor, the stone walls embracing her like a cold, indifferent audience. Her feet ached from the endless hours spent weaving through the court's labyrinth of suspicion, servitude, and silent judgments. Her palms, still damp from the spilled goblet she had narrowly salvaged, trembled lightly as she clutched her apron close. The faint rustling of its folds revealed a small folded note, its presence unexpected but electric under her fingers. Her breath caught in the hollow of her throat. The feast's laughter, once a cruel music behind closed doors, had yielded to the eerie stillness of midnight. Alara's emerald eyes flickered between the faded parchment and the cold glow of the flickering torch sconces that lined the hallway. Each step she took echoed against the granite, faltering echoes of a heart teetering between despair and something more fragile, something hopeful. With trembling hands, she unfolded the delicate parchment. Inked in a fine script, impossible to mistake, were words not of scorn but of promise. Not all who serve are forgotten. Your fate is not sealed by silence or stain. Tomorrow's dawn holds a chance to rewrite what you believe to be truth. The rose, pressed carefully beneath the letter, was pale and soft portrait of innocence yet blooming with the potency of forbidden love. Its petals seemed to glow faintly under the torchlight, casting a delicate overlay of warmth against the stone's cold austerity. The contrast between such fragile beauty and the hard, unyielding fortress of the castle was a silent songony of defiance, courage, and the hidden battle stirring within Alara's soul. Her gaze shifted to the small cracked mirror mounted on the wall, so often a harsh judge. Tonight, the flickering flame softened her reflection, revealing not just the maid seen by the court but the woman beneath, a woman with a regal spine and a destiny not yet announced. The weight of rejection pressed heavy, yet beneath it, the faint pulse of resilience fluttered like a newborn bird's tentative breath of air. The note was more than a message. It was a touchstone, a tether to a destiny hidden amid schemers and shadows. Alara's eyes glistened with unshed tears, not merely of loss but of burgeoning determination. The burden of her shame felt lighter, carried not alone but with the whisper of a secret ally laying groundwork in the shadows. Outside, the moon, framed by slow-crossing clouds, poured silver light over the castle's ancient battlements. A gentle wind carried hints of summer jasmine, a promise of change and renewal stirring beneath the velvet night. She pocketed the rose and clutched the note close to her heart, her fingers pressing into the parchment as if to draw strength from the fragile script. The regal bearing ingrained deeply within her flickered fully Olivia, fierce, quiet flame fed by hope and wild courage. In the sanctuary of that ancient stone corridor, amidst the silence of rejection and whispers of destiny, Alara made a choice no longer merely a maid behind closed doors, but a soul poised to seek, to challenge, and to transform the world that had once cast her aside. And as the dawn approached, heralding new battles and unknown alliances, the softest glimmer of morning light stretched through the narrow window, touching Alara's face with warmth, a radiant promise that her story was only just beginning. The first light of dawn crept cautiously over the kingdom's spires, casting a muted glow that seeped through the narrow windows of Alara's modest chamber. The air was cool and still, heavy with the mingling scents of damp stone and wilted rose petals pressed between the pages of an ancient book resting on her worn oak desk. Outside, the sprawling grounds lay veiled in early morning mist, shifting slowly as the sun's warm fingers stretched across the land. Alara stood by the window, fiery hair catching the diffused light, appearing like a blazing flame among the subdued earth tones of the chamber. Her emerald eyes, restless and vivid, fixed on the path leading toward the castle's grand entrance where courtiers already began their watchful march, poised to judge, to exclude. The note, still tucked safely in her apron pocket, whispered of a hope barely dared to be voiced. It was a fragile beacon amid the weight of scorn and suspicion that had shadowed her every step the previous night. Determined, she moved through the castle halls, her footsteps light but resolute against the cold stone slabs. The servants' quarters buzzed with the quiet energy of daily rituals, the scratched laughter of children playing beyond shuttered windows, the clatter of pots and pans in distant kitchen offering a brief echo of normalcy in a world rife with unrest. Her gaze met that of an older maid, who offered a brief, knowing note, a small gesture heavy with unspoken solidarity. It was the tiniest of victories, but for Alara, it burned bright against the gloom of isolation. Summoning her courage, she presented herself before the steward, a man whose calculating eyes bore into her as if weighing her very soul. "Mistress Alara," he said, voice curt yet not unkind, "the prince requires assistance this morning. There is a task of great delicacy. I trust your discretion." A tremor of excitement and anxiety coursed through her veins. "I am honored," she replied softly, the seeds of purpose beginning to take root. The morning unfolded with tense meetings in secluded chambers, whispered instructions passing between guarded lips. Alara's hands trembled as she absorbed every word, every subtle hint, her mind racing to anticipate unseen dangers, hidden allegiances. Outside, Thunder rumbled in the distant hills, a foreboding counterpoint to the fragile calm. Clouds thickened, swallowing the soft daytime light, draping the castle in a tapestry of shadows and impending storms. Alara's heart pounded as she navigated the corridors, the weight of watchful eyes pressing against her like a tangible force. Yet beneath the fear, a spark of resolve kindled the first battle cry of a lioness ready to reclaim her rightful place. Her reflection caught in a polished shield mounted upon the wall, a vivid flame of red and green, stark among the polished steel and cold stone. The mirror revealed not a mere servant, but a woman poised on the cusp of transformation. As the first droplets of rain began to patter on the castle's ancient tiles, Alara paused, her breath steady and deep. Though the path ahead was riddled with peril, her will had etched a promise into the dawn. The kingdom held its breath, and so did she. A whispered step followed her, a voice barely above the soft patter of rain. "Beware the thorns that guard the rose." Alara's fingers tightened on the note in her apron, her eyes narrowing, an unspoken question burning in their depths. What price would she pay to bloom beyond the shadows of her rank? And as the storm gathered strength beyond the castle walls, so too did the fire within her small, fierce, and utterly unyielding. The dawn was hers to seize or to surrender. The tale of courage was about to be written anew. The castle corridors were alive with the steady shuffle of armored boots and whispered plots, the heavy tapestries absorbing secrets and sorrow in equal measure. Alara moved swiftly but cautiously, her fiery hair concealed beneath a simple hood, the worn fabric of her maid's dress brushing softly against the cold stone floor. The note she had found nestled close to her heart, its promise of hope a fragile ember she kindled with every careful step. She had tasted small victories, nods of approval, hesitant conversations with servants and lesser lords, but each gain was shaded by the stark reality that power in this court was a thorned rose, fragile and perilous. An unexpected ally had appeared, a stern but fair steward named Arden, who, his voice low and cautious, whispered encouragement and guidance. His words were laced with the subtle undertones of a man who knew the court's true dangers, offering a flicker of light in the oppressive gloom. Trust must be measured, Alara, Arden had warned during a fleeting moment alone in the shadowed gallery. Not all who smile now will stand by you when the shadows deepen. The weight of his counsel pressed heavily on her, weaving through her thoughts like a creeping vine. But it also kindled a fiery resolve, a determination to seize whatever strength she could muster against the tide of contempt that sought to drown her. That afternoon, Alara found herself summoned to the prince's chamber under the guise of delivering a message. The air was thick with the fragrance of sandalwood and ink-stained parchment, a sudden contrast to her stark, humble existence. The prince regarded her with an intensity that sent shivers along her spine, his words careful yet charged with unspoken meaning. "Your courage is noted, Alara," he murmured, eyes glinting with hope and caution. "But the path ahead is riddled with shadows. Know where you tread." His caution was a veiled warning, but to Alara, each word was a lifeline stretching across the gulf of social chasms and whispered threats. Yet not all was as it seemed. Whispers reached her ears, a betrayal whispered behind cloistered doors. Arden, once a beacon of support, was rumored to have sided with the scheming courtier, his loyalty a shifting, fragile thing. The sting of betrayal cut deep, twisting pain into her already trembling heart. Alara's nights grew restless, dreams invaded by the faces of those she thought allies, their smiles splitting into cruel sneers. The rose pressed in her pocket, once a token of hope, now jagged at the edges, a symbol of the precarious line she walked. Despite the growing storm, Alara pressed on. Each step was a dance with Dangara balance of grace and grit. The court's scorn was a constant shadow, yet within her, a stubborn light pulsed, refusing to be snuffed. In the secluded heart of the castle gardens, beneath a moon veiled by parting clouds, Alara's breath caught as she overheard a plot whispered in shadowed tones, the prince's life imperiled, conspiracies weaving like serpents in the night. Her choice sharpened like a blade. Silence could save her, but risk doom him. Speaking out could ignite a firestorm that might consume them both. Her hands clenched the folds of her worn dress, the crimson threads a reminder of the peril and passion entwined in her destiny. She whispered to the night, a fragile vow, "I will not let fear bind me." The garden echoed with silence, leaves trembling in the cool breeze, as Alara stepped from shadow into the uncertain light of resolve. The court awaited, as did the storm, each breath a call to courage in the face of all that threatened to undo her. The night had fallen heavy and thick around the castle, shadows pooling in every corner like whispered secrets waiting to be unearthed. Alara moved silently through the winding corridors, her heart pounding in rhythm with the distant toll of the evening bell. The rose she kept hidden in her hand, the same fragile emblem of forbidden love, bruised her palm, a bitter reminder of both hope and loss entwined in its delicate petals. She had overheard the court's darkest whispers that night, hushed tones spoken behind heavy velvet curtains, secrets of betrayal twisting through the air like poisonous serpents. A plot had been laid, a treacherous snare aimed not just at her but at the prince himself, the fragile heart she had come to fiercely protect. The intricate dance of daggered intentions and concealed loyalties threatened to unravel everything she held dear. The glow of torchlight flickered along the cold stone walls as Alara pressed her back against the rough surface, breath shallow and trembling. The weight of her discoveries settled on her like an iron chain, binding her to a choice fraught with peril. To keep silent, preserving her faint, precarious place within the court, or to act, risking everything on a desperate gamble to save the prince from ruin. Her gaze fell to the mirror hanging nearby, its surface cracked and tarnished. The reflection staring back was a study in contradictions. The humble maid whose tattered garb belied a regal bearing too fiercely guarded to yield to disdain. The flickering firelight danced across her face, illuminating eyes alight with determination amidst the sea of swirling doubt. A whispered voice, her own, echoed in the cavernous stillness. "To be silent is to betray not only him but myself. I cannot let fear be my sentence." With measured resolve, she slid the rose into the folds of her apron, the petals soft against her skin, a signature of resolve in a court rife with treachery. The corridors around her seemed to hold their breath as Alara stepped forward, each footfall a quiet thunder, heralding the beginning of a battle waged not with sword or shield, but with courage and wit enfolding the heart. The dawn gleamed faintly beyond the towering stone windows, Promethean light poised on the horizon, a herald of change and the promise of salvation. Yet as the first rays kissed the ancient battlements, Alara's keen ears caught the echo of hurried footsteps, omens of a conspiracy spiraling swiftly beyond her control. A sudden gust swept through the hallway, carrying whispers of caution and fear. In that suspended heartbeat, Alara knew the fragile balance between light and shadow was about to shatter. And with it, the very fate of the kingdom. Her lips curved in a fierce, determined smile, the smile of one forged in fire and ready to meet her destiny. The rose clasped tightly in her grasp was no longer merely a token but a herald of transformation, a promise blossoming amid ruin. The stage was set, the players in motion. The story of courage and love was poised to blaze beyond the shadows into the hearts of all who dared believe. In the silent embrace of the night, Alara stepped resolutely into the unfolding tempest, her soul lighted by the piercing flame of hope. The storm's roar was a distant echo against the cold, hollow chambers of the castle where Alara found herself alone, her heart a fractured mirror reflecting shards of a dream shattered. Heavy rain pummeled the stone battlements outside, each drop a relentless drum marking the passage of her despair. The once vibrant halls of the court felt cavernous now, their grandeur swallowed by looming shadows and an unyielding chill that slipped beneath her thin maid's cloak. She sat on the rough wooden floor of a forgotten chamber, the fire long extinguished, leaving only the ghost of warmth that once cradled her hopes. Her fiery hair, wild and tangled, spread around her like a wreath of flame swallowed by darkness. Her green eyes, usually bright with a fierce spirit, were vacant pools reflecting nothing but the suffocating silence. The weight upon her chest was unbearable. The whispered betrayals she had overheard coiled tightly within her chest, strangling the fragile trust she had dared to place in others. The prince, her beacon and forbidden hope, was taken captured in a cruel snare spun by those draped in silks and deceit. And worse still, the venomous tongue of the court had turned its wrath upon her, casting blame with the coldness of a winter's frost. Her hands trembled as she clutched a single, withered rose, its petals bruised yet stubbornly clinging to life, a cruel mirror to her own battered spirit. The crown, a symbol of power and duty, was now a distant, unreachable dream, a weight she was unworthy to bear. The dim daylight filtered weakly through a narrow window, dust motes swirling listlessly in the still air, barely illuminating the tears that traced silent paths down her dirt-streaked face. The sound of dripping water echoed off the stone walls, a rhythmic dirge accompanying her unraveling will. A voice, sharp but distant, edged in cold accusation, haunted the corners of her mind. It was your failure that led to his capture. The words were not spoken aloud but felt as a tangible shroud, wrapping her in suffocating despair. Her reflection caught in a cracked, tarnished mirror, the image fragmented and distorted, presenting a princess in chains of circumstance rather than a maid who dared to dream. She reached out, fingertips brushing the fractured glass, yearning to touch the woman she once believed she was. Outside, the tempest raged on, fierce and unrelenting, the thunderous sky mirroring the storm inside her troubled soul. Each flash of lightning cast fleeting illumination on her hollow form, a luminance that faded almost as quickly as it arrived. Her breath hitched, a choked whisper escaping lips stained with grief and unspoken pleadings. "Why has the light forsaken me?" Silence answered, thick and unyielding, drawing her further into the abyss of isolation and despair. And there, in the cold embrace of the forsaken chamber, Alara felt the brittle shards of her world splintering irrevocably, fragile threads of love, hope, and identity unraveling beneath the weight of betrayal. The storm outside crescendoed, thunder crash mingling with the sobs that she could no longer hold at bay. In the clinging darkness, her soul teetered dangerously, caught between the past's fading glow and a future shrouded in uncertain shadow. The cell was a void of unforgiving stone and oppressive silence, surrounding Alara with a coldness that seeped beyond flesh into bone and spirit. She sat huddled near the wall where jagged cracks webbed across the granite, tracing their fractured patterns with trembling fingers, a mirror to the ruin of her own hope. The faint light of a single, sputtering candle cast long, leering shadows that danced mockingly upon the walls, a cruel reminder of freedom lost and dreams buried. Outside, the night pressed heavily against the narrow barred window, the chill air slipping inside in ghostly tendrils, wrapping silently around her like a shroud. The distant howl of wind and the muted drip of water from an unseen leak echoed like the slow ticking of a relentless clock, marking the passage of moments that stretched into infinite despair. Her fiery hair hung in tangled strands about her face, damp and unkempt, framing eyes deep-set and hollow, once full of fierce fire but now dulled by the weight of heartbreak. The once glimmering emeralds were now vast pools of grief, reflecting shadows she feared might consume her entirely. Alara's breath caught, a faint ragged sound nearly swallowed by the cavernous stillness. Her hands clutched the remnants of a rose, petals faded and wilted, the vibrant crimson now a ghostly stain, an echo of forbidden love and what had been lost to treachery. The crown, the emblem of duty and destiny, felt impossibly distant, an unrealized dream dissolving into mist like the memories that brushed her mind, fragments of warmth from a prince's smile now cold and unreachable. A slow, shuddering sigh escaped her lips, a whisper lost in the vast emptiness, a solitary lament for trust broken, for battles fought in silence and invisibility. The mirror she once sought for truth stood shattered in memory, and every reflected fragment cut deep, reminding her of the divide between who she was forced to become and the sovereign heart beneath the frayed garments. She curled inward, the stone biting through her modest maid's attire, the ache of isolation folding about her like a storm without end. The distant echo of footsteps, laughter, and intrigue from the court seemed a cruel taunt, a world of splendor and conflict beyond the reach of the girl banished to shadow. Her eyes fluttered closed, searching desperately for a flicker of light in the engulfing darkness. The rose, fragile and faded, slipped from her grasp, its petals scattering like the remnants of a fading hope along the cold floor. Her whisper was bare and broken as there. Still a dawn. Silence answered, deep and unyielding, wrapping her in its merciless embrace. Time itself seemed to suspend, the cell's walls closing tighter as her spirit waned. In the hush of solitude, Alara teetered on the precipice between surrender and the faintest gleam of resistance flickering like a distant star beyond the midnight sky. And in that vast, echoing silence, her world unraveled, thread by agonizing thread. The night stretched infinite and cold within the stone confines of the dark cell. Alara lay curled beneath the scant blanket, the chill biting through her thin gown, wrapping around her like a spectral embrace of despair. The only light came from a sliver of moon, cast through a narrow opening high above a pale thread of silver that painted her fiery hair with ethereal luminescence. The rose, once vibrant and now wilted in her palm, was a tender relic of love and hope, pressed between cracked fingers like a fragile promise. Each petal, faded and delicate, bore the weight of memories and dreams nearly broken beneath the ruthless scorn of the court. Her breath came shallow, each exhale mingling with the cold air that seeped through the barred window, carrying with it a distant echo stirring of the forbidden garden where whispered fortunes and stolen glances had once ignited warmth in the coldest nights. The mirror, long absent here, seemed to linger in her mind's eye, a fragmented surface reflecting both the maid scorned and the noble bloodline hidden beneath. The crown's weight, oppressive and distant, had now become a shackle that bound her to a fate neither chosen nor forgiven. A faint sound stirred the silence, the soft rustle of parchment sliding through a keyhole. Fingers trembling, Alara reached toward the note, the fragile sound a beacon amid the silence. Unfolding the delicate paper inside her cell, she found a message written in a familiar, flowing hand. Words carved from hope and danger intertwined. In the darkest hour, seek the light within. The rose's path is hidden, but not lost. The syllables whispered ancient secrets, promises of an unseen passage, a hidden door veiled beneath the cold stones of her imprisonment. Her heart fluttered, fragile yet fierce, a glimmer piercing the swallow of night. Alara's glance drifted to the solitary rose petal, its edges curling with age but still bearing the indomitable essence of life. She pressed it tenderly to her heart, the emblem of forbidden love and unyielding spirit, a silent vow made in the quiet of desolation. The distant howl of wind mingled with the soft clinking of chains, the castle alive with unspoken fears and shifting shadows. Yet beneath the weight of despair, a seed stirred the fragile promise of dawn, a clandestine bridge from brokenness to redemption. Her lips, pale and chapped, parted to whisper a vow that rose like a ghost among the silence. I will not fade into shadow. The night cradled her solitude. Stars flickered distant and cold, then steady and watchful, like silent sentinels guarding the fragile flicker of courage now kindling within. And as the candle guttered low in the dim cell, Alara's soul embraced the tender glimmer, a tiny, trembling flame that dared to dream of freedom, love, and justice reborn. The tale was poised to shift in the knife's edge between ruin and revelation, beneath the watchful gaze of a moonlit kingdom heavy with secrets. And within that poised breath, Alara found the slender thread upon which all hope would come to hang. The cold stone of the prison walls had begun to soften beneath the gentle kiss of dawn's first light. Inside the barren cell, where shadows once clung like vultures, a quiet transformation stirred, a subtle shift in the air that whispered of hope and renewal. Alara stood, her figure silhouetted against the narrow window as golden rays pierced through the grime, scattering fragments of light across the cold, damp floor. Her hands, once trembling and clenched tightly against despair, now rested gently upon the rough-hewn ledge. The iron bars no longer seemed an impenetrable cage but a fragile veil between her and the wider world, between lost dreams and the possibility of rebirth. Her fiery hair caught the morning glow, setting her apart from the muted hues of the stone as if crowned by the sun itself. The rose, pressed between the pages of the note she had cherished all these endless nights, glimmered faintly in the soft light, its crimson hue a defiant burst of passion and promise in a place suffocating with silence. It was a delicate emblem of forbidden love and quiet strength, echoing within her as she breathed deeply, tasting a shiver of something new. She turned slowly, eyes tracing the contours of the chamber once a prison, now the crucible of her emergence. The flickering torchlight down the corridor reached faintly around the corner, a hesitant lantern in the darkness. Alara's gaze lifted, her green eyes sharp with newfound clarity. The mirror she once bore deep suspicions towards was gone, but its lessons remained, the fractured reflection of who she had been, and the burgeoning shadow of who she might yet become. Silence broke near the heavy door, the softest scrape of a moving latch. A slim beam of light reached into the cell, and Alara's heart leapt with uncertain hope. "It is time," a voice whispered a promise and a summons. Her breath steadied as she stepped forward, each movement deliberate and purposeful. The weight of shame and rejection lifted fractionally, replaced by the fragile yet fierce fire of resolve. The court's cold scorn still lingered, but it no longer held dominion within her soul. Embracing the rose's whispered courage, Alara breathed, "This is but the dawn's first light. The day is not yet won, but the night no longer reigns." Outside, the castle stirred, the ancient stones glowing warm beneath the sun's awakening gaze, the gardens rustling softly with the promise of spring. A wooden swing, worn and weathered, moved gently in a breeze that bore distant laughter, a testament to innocence preserved against darkness. Her eyes sparkled with the faintest hint of a smile, a fragile but fierce bloom in the sleeping castle's heart. Alara stepped towards the door, the world unfolding before her like the first brushstrokes on a new canvas. The path ahead was shadowed and uncertain, but illuminated now by the unwavering flame of courage. And as the door creaked open, the first ray of true dawn touched the threshold, a silent herald of change, resilience, and the beginning of a journey reborn. The first pale rays of dawn struggled through the heavy velvet curtains of the castle chambers, casting fragile beams of light that dissolved the shadows clinging stubbornly to the cold stone walls. Alara stepped silently into the corridor, her silhouette bathed in the soft glow of awakening day, a stark contrast to the darkness that had enveloped her soul for so long. The rose, now pressed carefully inside the worn folds of her gown, pulsed with the quiet defiance that had taken root within her. Her pace was steady, deliberate, each footfall resonating with an unwavering resolve. The courtiers, once haughty and dismissive, now turned whispers into cautious glances as she passed, an unspoken ripple of change stirred beneath the surface of the rigid court. The tides of power, once thought unyielding, whispered tentative promise in her presence. Alara reached the heart of the court, where the prince, cloaked in the fragile dignity of his captive state, awaited salvation yet unspoken. She caught his weary gaze, a flicker of hope barely perceivable but fiercely cherished. Their eyes met, a silent pact forged in the shadows of their shared suffering. The oppressive atmosphere thickened as schemers lurked in hidden alcoves, their gazes sharp and calculating. Among them, the steward's smirk twisted into disbelief, a crack in the facade of invincibility he had once worn so assuredly. With resolve emanating from every fiber of her being, Alara raised her voice, clear and resonant, cutting through the murmur like the clang of a battle horn. The court must see the truth, no longer shrouded by fear or deceit. The prince shall be freed, justice restored, and the darkness exposed. A hush fell. The courtiers shifted uneasily, torn between allegiance and apprehension. Murmurs of dissent flickered momentarily but faltered before the flame ignited in Alara's gaze, steadfast and commanding. In the piercing morning light, the veil of treachery began to unravel. Whispers turned to accusations, and the hidden machinations of the court were laid bare like wounded beasts cornered by dawning clarity. Alara stepped forward, her hand steady as she unveiled a sealed letter, the prince's own secret message, a beacon of loyalty and hope concealed beneath veils of duplicity. The scroll shimmered in the golden light, a tangible symbol of truth and allegiance. The crowd recoiled, then fragmented, as the formidable grip of the court's stratagems crumbled beneath undeniable evidence. Alara's courage resonated beyond the chamber, echoing through the marble halls and ivy-clad battlements alike. Above, the ancient banners fluttered in a gentle breeze, their colors vibrant against the brightening sky, a herald of renewal. The wooden swing in the garden below, abandoned and worn, creaked softly as the wind breathed life into forgotten innocence. Her breath steady and heart aflame, Alara whispered, "This is but the first step toward light. Together, we will reclaim what was lost." As dawn broke fully, bathing the court in radiant hues that banished the last vestiges of suspicion, Alara's transformation shone clear, a beacon of hope forged through trial. The rose clasped tight to her chest pulsed anew, a living symbol of forbidden love blossoming amidst the cold stone and shifting tides of power. The court's tempest had not yet passed, and shadows still lingered, but the dawn was undeniable, and Alara stood at its center, her voice a clarion call echoing through a realm poised for change. The journey was perilous, the victories fragile, but the story was hers now to write, fierce and unyielding as the fiery crown she bore within. The tapestry of dawn unfurled across the royal court, bathing the once shadowed halls in a warm, golden light that seemed to pulse with newfound hope and revelation. Alara stood at the heart of the grand chamber, her fiery hair radiant in the morning sun, cascading like a burning banner that refused to be extinguished. Her simple maid's attire had been exchanged for flowing robes of deep emerald embroidered with golden threads, symbols of her true heritage and rising power. Around her, courtiers fell silent, their faces a gallery of shock, awe, and reluctant submission. The treacherous courtier who had once wielded influence like a dagger now cowered beneath her steady gaze, stripped of secrets and schemes in the merciless light of truth. Amid the marble and gold, the crown rested upon a velvet cushion, waiting to complete the circle of justice. Alara's eyes met the prince's, his expression a blend of relief, pride, and ardent affection, their bond now forged through trials, tragedy, and unwavering courage. No longer maid nor victim, she embodied nobility beyond birthright, a queen in soul and spirit. Her voice resonated through the chamber, clear and unwavering. Today, justice is not a prize claimed by birth alone, but a right earned through truth and honor. Let this court witness the dawn of a reign not mired in deception, but rooted in service and love. The courtiers exchanged hesitant glances, an unseen shift rippling through the air like the gentle unfolding of a rose's petals, fragile yet unstoppable. The rose she carried once as a symbol of forbidden love now bloomed vibrant and unashamed, a testament to the transformative power of courage and conviction. The crown was lifted, anointed with solemn reverence, and placed upon Alara's head, the golden circlet settling like a promise kept, a legacy reclaimed. The mirror in the chamber reflected her true self, unmasked at last, a fiery flame lighting the path of justice and passion, standing tall against the dark tides of treachery. She turned slowly, eyes gleaming with unshakable purpose as the courtiers bowed, the room echoing with the gentle music of redemption and renewal. Vincenzo stepped forward, his presence a steady pillar beside her, their hands intertwining love and loyalty intertwined in a powerful embrace that defied the court's past shadows. Together, Alara whispered, her voice carrying the strength of mountains and the gentleness of dawn, "We stand not as conquerors, but as guardians of our kingdom's true heart." Outside, the sky blazed with the vibrant hues of morning oranges and pinks spilling like fire across the horizon, washing the land in light that promised peace, justice, and a new beginning. Alara, crowned and radiant, lifted her gaze to the rising sun, calm, resolute, transformed. The storm within had passed. The kingdom was hers to heal and honor. And in the silent power of that moment, the story found its triumphant crescendo, a symphony of love, courage, and the indomitable light of a noble heart reborn. The late afternoon sun spilled its warm glow across the rolling hills that cradled the kingdom, bathing the land in a soft, golden light. Alara stood high on a balcony overlooking her realm where the lush landscape stretched as far as the eye could see, lush and vibrant, a testament to the peaceful dawn she had fought so fiercely to achieve. Her gown, once simple and worn, now shimmered subtly in the light of flowing fabric of deep green, embroidered faintly in gold, echoing her transformation. Her fiery red hair tumbled in gentle waves down her shoulders, catching the sunlight, a vivid reminder of her fiery spirit renewed. Her eyes, once clouded with doubt and despair, now gleamed with quiet peace, softened by the journey through shadows to a place of rightful nobility. In her hand, she held a small, carved wooden box, her personal relic of the struggle, a keepsake of every sacrifice, betrayal, and victory. Inside, nestled carefully, was a rose, fresh and unopened, its petals a powerful symbol of love reborn and the beauty that endured beyond hardship. Beside her, the prince, her love, her partner, her equal, stood with a gentle smile, his hand resting lightly on her waist. His gaze was full of admiration and tenderness, a silent vow of the future that awaited Tame, a future built on justice, love, and the forging of bonds that no court or crown could sever. The wind whispered softly through the open veranda, stirring the banners and the wildflowers in the garden below, a natural symphony celebrating serenity restored. Shadows from the past dissolved into the air like mist, replaced by the warmth of dawn's promise. Alara took a deep breath, exhaling slowly, feeling the fullness of peace settle into her bones. Her journey had been long and fraught with peril, yet every painful step had led to Thesan acceptance of herself, her love, and her destiny. She looked out over the kingdom, the horizon glowing with the tender hues of twilight and dawn coalescing, a symbol of unity and hope. The errors and betrayals of yesterday had been woven into the fabric of her strength, and now, she embraced her new role not as a pawn, but as a rightful queen in the service of love and justice. Her fingers brushed softly against the rose in her hand, a delicate touch that conveyed understanding and gratitude, a gentle acknowledgement of the love and sacrifice that had sustained her through every storm. The prince leaned closer, his voice a whisper in the breeze, carrying words of reassurance. This land, our love, is forever woven into the threads of the dawn that we shall build together. And in that tender silence, amid the blush of sunset and the peaceful murmur of life renewed, Alara finally understood. The storm had passed, leaving behind a serene landscape of hope, love, and eternal nobility. The kingdom, her heart, their future, these were now one, a harmony sealed in time, a quiet promise kept beneath the endless sky. The golden light of dawn spilled softly over the kingdom's rolling hills, bathing the sprawling fields and majestic castles in gentle warmth. Alara stood on the balcony of the palace, her gaze sweeping across the landscape that stretched far beyond the horizon, a tapestry woven with hope and breathless renewal. Her gown, a simple yet regal fabric woven of silvery threads that shimmered in the sunlight, moved gently with the breeze, a testament to the transformation within. Her fiery hair, now unbound, cascaded like a flowing river of flame, framing her face in a halo of soft light. Her eyes, once haunted by shadows of shame and despair, now shimmered with a newfound clarity carved through the fog of her past struggles. The mirror reflected within her was no longer fractured. It was restored, whole, revealing the nobility that had lain dormant beneath layers of doubt. In her hand, she cradled a small, hand-carved rosette's petals, vivid and alive, emblematic of love's resilience and the unbreakable spirit that had blossomed against all odds. The symbol of forbidden love, once hidden and battered, now stood proudly as pure and radiant as the dawn itself. Beside her, the prince, calm and resolute, watched her with a smile that spoke of deep understanding and shared victory. His hand gently clasped her waist, drawing her into a quiet embrace and spoken promise that their love, once a fragile seed, had grown into a mighty tree, rooted in courage and nurtured by the truth. The lush landscape beneath them whispered in harmony, the wind softly carrying the scent of blooming flowers and freshly turned earth, a testament to the cycles of suffering and rebirth, decay and renewal. The distant melody of a morning songbird rose in gentle crescendo, echoing the peace now stitched into the fabric of their lives. Alara's gaze lifted upward, capturing the blank canvas of the sky, a canvas awaiting the next chapter of their story, written with gentle strokes of compassion, faith, and forgiveness. Her fingers brushed over the rose's velvety petals, a silent prayer whispered into the dawn. She took a step forward toward the window, breathing in the promise of this new beginning. Her heart beat steady and sure, echoing the rhythmic cadence of hope awakening in her core. The shadows of her past, with their scars and betrayals, had dissolved into the light, leaving only the shimmering glow of love's enduring power. In that tranquil sacred pause amid the symphony of nature and destiny, Alara realized that her journey of sacrifice and courage had not been in vain. She was no longer a maiden bound by society's chains, but a woman crowned by her own worth, her spirit finally free to soar. The dawn stretched endlessly before her, an eternity of promise, while her youthful, fiery gaze sank into the horizon, embracing her place in a world reborn. The palace's spires reached upward, breaking through clouds of doubt, reaching toward the luminous sky, a beacon of hope that would forever shine in her heart. The sky stretched wide and tranquil, painted in hues of amber and lavender as the day settled into a peaceful dusk. Alara and the prince stood at the castle's highest battlements, overlooking their kingdom, a realm reborn from shadows into shimmering light. The landscape was lush fields of wildflowers swaying gently in the evening breeze, their colors vivid against the fading gold of the sun. The grandeur of the castle behind them radiated calm, its turrets reaching upward, symbols of stability and hope. Alara's gown was a simple, silken fabric that caught the last rays of the day, glowing softly in the dusk. Her fiery hair, once wild and unruly, now cascaded smoothly over her shoulders, a crown of her own making. Her eyes, once filled with doubt and pain, now shimmered with a profound serenity, reflecting the vastness of the sky and the infinite promise of love made real. Her hand gently rested on the prince's arm, their gazes locked in shared understanding, no words needed. The rose she carried, a symbol of love's resilience, was now pressed to her heart, its petals vibrant and alight with the warmth of victory over despair. It was an emblem not only of their forbidden love but of the journey they had endured, the sacrifices, betrayals, and courage needed to forge their destiny. A soft wind brushed past, stirring their garments and the wildflowers below, whispering of renewal and eternal bonds. The distant call of a nightingale floated through the air, a melodic echo of harmony amid Chaosan ode to love's enduring power. Alara's smile was tender, yet resolute. Her fingers brushed the rose's petals, as if recalling every moment of pain and victory woven into its bloom. She closed her eyes briefly, feeling the unshakable peace that had slowly taken root, in inner calm emerging from the storm of her past struggles. The prince reached out, gently lifting her chin, and she responded with a quiet, unwavering gaze, eyes that had seen darkness but now shone with a promise of light. Their union was a silent vow, not just of love, but of hope and nobility, transcending social barriers and claiming their rightful place. In that sacred silence, the kingdoms of doubt and despair faded away, leaving only the stillness of a world at peace. The golden hour bathed them in a warm glow, an everlasting symbol of harmony restored, of hearts united beyond the divisions of birth and status. Around them, the vast landscape stretched into infinity, whispering secrets of timeless love and enduring strength. The scene held its breath, the eternal promise of dawn, final reminder that their story, born of shadows, had blossomed into a legend of hope. They stood still for a moment longer, embracing the silence, their figures luminous against the tranquil backdrop, a testament to the triumph of true nobility. The world was quiet, yet their hearts thundered a love that echoed through eternity, as the first stars emerged in the indigo sky, watching over a kingdom reborn from darkness into peace. Have you ever defied the odds for love? Share your stories below.